You shop with a special ration card. There's a ZS brand refrigerator in your kitchen, government-issued rugs on the floor, and boots built to last 3 winters. You've grown used to thinking of yourself as part of the elite. Not the people. Not the power. Something in between. Until one day, they pull you down the stairs like a stray dog, no explanation, no belongings, no name. No neighbor steps out. No one is surprised. Because being the wife of an NKVD officer is like living in a house where the floor is made of ice. As long as you're standing, you shine. But the moment you slip, you vanish into silence. You are young, clever, and observant enough to know the rules without being told. You were not born poor, but not privileged either, just close enough to imagine what the inside of comfort might feel like. You wanted quiet things, a safe apartment, warm hands, a name that meant protection instead of danger. When he entered your life, all of that seemed possible. An officer of the NKVD, tall, clean, silent. He didn't flirt, didn't smile much, but people stepped aside when he walked. You saw how the cashier's hand trembled slightly when she read his ID. You married without a church, without a dress, without photographs. But you get something more useful than ceremony. A key. To a door in a newly built apartment block, the kind with hot water and a gas stove, a rug from state distribution, or a refrigerator that hums like a promise. You unpack your few belongings and rearrange them into the life you think you've earned. The walls are thick. The neighbors don't speak unless spoken to. You take this as respect. You learn quickly how to move inside the silence. You don't ask what he does during the day, why his boots are muddy, why his fingers smell like metal. You smile when you're supposed to, lower your voice when you're not. In public, you walk half a step behind him. At home, you fold his shirts so the creases face the same way. These things are not meaningless. They are survival, folded into routine. Sometimes you hear things. A neighbor's door slams in the middle of the night, followed by footsteps, voices that are too calm. Once, you see a woman being led out in her nightgown. She is barefoot, carrying nothing. The next day, her name is removed from the mailbox. You wipe the handle of your door extra clean that evening, just in case. But you feel safe. Because he is your husband, and he works for the machine that makes other people disappear. You are not those people. You are with the ones who remain. When rations arrive, you are called by name. When someone is arrested, you receive an extra kilogram of butter. You don't speak of this. You simply mark the date, press the paper into the back of a drawer, and keep moving. You bear him a son. The child receives a crib from the department store without waiting in line. The passport is processed in days, not months. Your mother comes to visit and says, "You've landed well." You nod, as if it was luck. You do not say what you know, that it was not a landing, but an alignment. An alignment means stability. But alignment also means proximity. And proximity to power is not a wall. It is a line of melting ice beneath your feet. You learn to walk without making ripples, without shadows, without scent. Because one day, without warning, someone slips. And the first to drown are not the farthest away, but the ones closest to the edge. He starts coming home later, but says nothing. You learn not to ask. His uniform smells of paper, cordite, and cold air. Some nights, his hands tremble when he buttons his shirt. You hand him tea in silence, watching the way his eyes no longer meet yours. There's a weight growing in the apartment, not physical, but thick enough to breathe. You stop opening the window. You stop asking who didn't come back to work. When he isn't home, you walk softly. You polish the brass on the door, realign the silverware. The neighbors don't speak to you anymore, not even with their eyes. Their silence feels different now. Not respect. Calculation. You are no longer invisible. You are marked by proximity. You begin to notice the lists. Not on paper, but in tone. Who receives invitations? Who is avoided at the post office? Who stands alone in the courtyard? A quiet math, constantly shifting. You try not to solve the equation, but your name sits in a corner of every sum. He keeps a locked drawer now. You never touch it. You hear him open it late at night, then close it again. Sometimes he burns pages in the sink, watching them curl without blinking. You know better than to ask what was on them. But you begin to dream of the sound fire makes when it devours words. He stops wearing his service pistol at home. You don't ask why. The silence between you sharpens, but remains intact. You think it might be love, still. Or habit. Or a mutual agreement to survive the architecture you both occupy. Then, one evening, he doesn't return. No warning. No knock. No note on the pillow. You wait until dawn. Then 2 more days. You call no one. You understand, if you ask questions, you become a question. So you sit still. On the 3rd day, they come for you. There is no struggle. You are not hysterical. You fold your coat over your arm and close the door behind you. The men are quiet. They do not touch you roughly. They do not tell you why. They don't need to. You already know. Down the staircase, you count your steps as if it's a ritual. 32 steps to the bottom. The floor is polished. You wonder if someone else had to scrub it that morning. You wonder if they had a name. They don't blindfold you. They don't shout. They simply sit you in a chair under a hanging light and begin to fill out a form. Your name, your husband's name, the address you just left, the date of your marriage. You answer as if reciting from memory. You don't ask what the form is for. They ask what you knew. You say, nothing. They ask what he told you. You say, nothing. They ask who visited your home. You say, no one. These are all the right answers. These are also the reasons you are here. You are not charged. You are not accused. You are not even formally arrested. They say it's a temporary measure. They say it's procedural. They don't sign anything in front of you. They don't let you sign anything, either. They move you to a holding room. You sit on a bench with 8 other women, none of whom speak. You recognize one of them. She lived 2 floors down. Her husband worked in logistics. She doesn't look at you, and you don't look at her. In this place, recognition is not comfort. It's contagion. At night, the air is thick with woe and fear. No one sleeps. You hear whispers in the dark, names, prayers, breathless math. How many days it's been. How long others were held. Which direction the guards walk when they come to call a name. Your own name is not called. Not on the first night. Not on the second. On the third, you are brought back to the room with the light and the form. The questions are the same. The man behind the desk is different. His hands shake. Yours do not. You are told you will be sent away. Not punished. Just relocated. For your safety. For clarity. For stability. They don't say the name of the place. You don't ask. You are learning the rules now, faster than you ever learned them before. They give you an hour to gather your things, but you have none. You left with your coat and your silence. They do not offer you food. They do not tell you how long. They do not say if you'll come back. On the train, the windows are painted over. The carriage smells of fear and metal. You sit among strangers who share your expression, your silence, your crime, being adjacent to someone who fell. The train moves east. It does not stop often. When it does, no one gets off. There is no sentence. There is no trial. There is only a number, a file, and a destination you're not allowed to know until your feet touch its ground. And even then, you are only told, this is where you are now. And this is who you are no longer. The camp is not what you expected, though you never allowed yourself to expect anything. It is not a prison, because no one calls it that. It is not a settlement, because there are no homes. It is not exile, because there is no promise of return. It is only cold, and wood, and mud, and numbers spoken in low voices. You are assigned a barack. It leaks when it rains, and freezes when it doesn't. The beds are stacked in 3 tiers, though no one calls them beds. You are placed with women like you, wives of people who vanished. Some used to be schoolteachers, typists, engineers, wives of other officers. One had a doctorate. Now she washes latrines. You do not talk about the past. The past is a broken line, and each time someone traces it too far, they stop speaking entirely. You speak only of the body, what hurts, what's swollen, what didn't bleed when it should have. Food is measured in crumbs. Warmth is measured in fingers that still move. You are given work. At first, you fail at it. Your hands shake too much. You are too slow. The supervisor watches you, her face blank. She doesn't shout. She just makes a mark. You learn quickly after that. There are moments, rare, flickering, when something human returns. A woman hums a lullaby before sleep. Someone finds an old coin in the dirt and passes it around like a relic. Once, in the wind, you think you hear your name. But it is just breath in rusted hinges. You stop thinking of him. Not out of anger or betrayal. Out of necessity. There is not enough space inside you for memory and survival. You let the memory go to make room for silence. Silence is lighter. When spring comes, it does not feel like salvation. It brings mud instead of warmth, insects instead of flowers. The sun does not feel like hope, only exposure. You walk slower, but you no longer fall. Your body has learned the rhythm of endurance. No one tells you when your sentence ends, because there was never a sentence. One day they come with a paper. It has no explanation, only a stamp and a destination. You are to be released. But not returned. Not home. Not to your old name. Just away. You step out of the gate carrying nothing. No bag. No file. No identity. Only the knowledge that you walked through something designed to erase you, and yet something of you remains. Not the same you. Not the wife. Not the woman. Only the one who watched the floor turn to ice and learned how to walk without making a sound. They do not send you back to Moscow. That city no longer belongs to you, if it ever did. Instead, they give you a train ticket to a place you've never heard of, where the streets have no names, only numbers, and the buildings wear their gray like uniforms. There is no welcome. Just cold wind and empty air. You rent a corner in someone else's room. A cot behind a curtain. They ask no questions, and you offer no answers. You work at the post office, not with letters, those require clearance, but with packages no one wants, returns, rejections, missent things. You recognize yourself in their wake, in their loss of origin. You speak little. You never raise your voice. When people ask where you came from, you lie. The lies are small, clean, functional. You used to live in the South. Your husband died in the war. You came for work. You say only what fits inside the silence others expect from you. The days pass. You age without noticing. Your reflection fades, not because you don't look, but because the mirror tells you nothing. You learn to avoid the sound of heavy boots, to stay inside during census checks, to nod without agreeing. You hear about the ones who were promoted, who signed the orders, who lived long enough to forget what they had done. You do not envy them. You understand something they never had to learn, the state does not need you to sin in order to punish you. It only needs you to exist in the wrong place, at the wrong time, next to the wrong man. You think of your son, but you do not write. You imagine him with another name, another face, somewhere farther west. Maybe he tells people his mother died young. Maybe he believes it. Maybe it's easier for both of you that way. Years later, a piece of paper arrives. A certificate. It says that you have been cleared. That your association no longer applies. That your record has been corrected. The paper is thin. The ink is fake. The words mean nothing. You fold it once, twice, 3 times. You place it under the stove, near the others, the ration cards, the residence permit, the fabricated past. Together, they form a small archive of your survival. A language only silence can read. You live quietly. Not because you chose quiet, but because quiet is the only thing that never asked for anything in return. You are no longer watched, but you still move as if you are. You still pause before you speak, still measure your steps, still expect the floor to crack. The people around you change. Some die. Some move. The young ones come and go without noticing you. That suits you. You are a figure blurred at the edge of the frame, a woman at the window with no history worth asking about. You still work, though they call it part-time now. You sweep the sorting floor, tape shut boxes that never belonged to anyone. Your hands are slower, your back tighter, but you do not complain. You are grateful to be useful in ways that require no explanation. Once, a neighbor offers to help carry your groceries. He says he respects how strong you are, how you've endured. You nod, thank him, close the door, and sit with your back against it. Not in fear, but in disbelief. Endured what? You were not in a war. You were not on the front. You simply outlived the moment they expected you to vanish. And now you are a footnote pretending to be a survivor. One night you open a drawer and find the old certificate again. The ink has faded. The paper has yellowed. It still carries the same lie, that something was undone, that innocence can be restored with a stamp. You almost burn it. But you don't. Not out of sentiment, but out of spite. The page deserves to rot slowly, like the memory it pretends to correct. You write nothing. You leave no memoir. You know better. Words are dangerous, and memory is never neutral. But when your grandson visits, taller now, with eyes that scan the world like a ledger, he asks about the photo on the wall. A man in uniform. Your husband. You say, he died long ago. Then you change the subject. That night, you stay awake. Not from guilt. From weight. The kind that never lifts, even when no one is pressing down anymore. You survived the silence. You made a life from what remained. But survival is not justice. It is just continuity. In the morning, you rise early. You wash your face. You dress in silence. You walk past the photo without looking. There is still bread to buy. There are still floors to sweep. There is still a version of you that functions. And that, too, is a kind of sentence. They called it administrative procedure. They called you associated. They never called you by your name. Between 1937 and 1939, over 18,000 women were arrested as wives of enemies of the people. Most had committed no crime. Their husbands had vanished into cells or bullets, and the women followed, not by guilt, but by proximity. They were not trying. They were relocated. Labeled. Forgotten. Officially, it was paperwork. Personally, it was extinction. Some died in transit. Others in labor camps, their bodies buried under names that never belonged to them. Some were released into cities where they had never lived, told to start over without documentation, explanation, or voice. Many never saw their children again. Some were reclassified, years later, by government clerks who no longer remembered the system that created them. Your name was one of them. Not unique. Not rare. But yours. You were not a spy, a traitor, or a threat. You were a woman who cooked in silence, folded uniforms, and believed in the idea of safety. And for that, they erased you. Not because you were wrong, but because you were adjacent to someone they no longer needed. If anyone asks what happened to the wives of the state, show them a blank form, a sealed file, a scar that doesn't speak. Show them the space where history used to be. And if you are the one reading this, wondering how such things could happen, remember, the most dangerous place to stand is not outside the system. It is beside it. Quiet. Loyal. Unnamed. That's where the ice is thinnest.